Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, Bovine and Blue, and joining me, the most dedicated panel of all podcast programs, Brian, Jake, and Rick. Without these guys, can you imagine how bad this show would be? I mean, think of how bad it is already, okay?
And now watch us make it worse.
No, imagine it 3 times worse because of the help I would be missing from my panelists. It's great to find people who are truly dedicated or at a point in their life where they're so bored they have nothing better to do. What's really great about the panel, I'll tell you, is during the season of football when the viewership is way up, they're here. But when everyone disappears and goes into a shell, they're still here. That's the greatest thing that I can say. And that's thank you. That's my way of saying thank you so much for helping me out. I wanted to start the program today with something that we can all kind of toss around. And Hammer Time is here, and Pat Severinson. Let's start with Tony Grossi first, okay? And we'll start with Rick. Rick, go ahead.
You just say Tony Grossi. I mean, what more else need be said? I mean, I didn't know the microphone was loaded. Those didn't know he was caught saying that Baker Mayfield was a effing midget, and he has been suspended. And oddly enough, I have not seen anybody announce it on any of the TV shows up here. Very few, if any, articles have been written about it. It's just like he just disappeared, like he just fell off the face of the earth. So they're keeping it on the down low, I guess. But Grossi once again spoke before he thought.
All right, and Jake?
How long do you have to be on radio before you realize to make sure there's no hot mic? That's all I'm going to say about it. You should know how to turn the mic off and make sure the producer does that, because this can happen. And I'm sure many other radio hosts say stuff like this, but no, there's a hot mic, at least.
All right, and Brian?
Now, how tall is Tony Grossi? He's around 5'9", something like that. 5'8".
I don't know.
Probably,
maybe.
I guess, yeah.
And he's calling someone who's taller than he is a midget. A fucking midget.
Yes.
Well, he's a fucking mental midget. Has been for decades.
Well,
How he still has a fucking job is beyond me.
Well, because there's no new, fresh infusion of talent into the Cleveland radio market. I mean, people live and die and get recycled in Cleveland broadcast. And, I take real offense to this because what Jake said is absolutely true. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or the play, Glengarry Glen Ross, but it is a pivotal moment in the play and in the movie where the manager of the office totally screws up a play with a client, and Al Pacino, is raking him over the coals, and he says to him, a fucking child would know better than this. And you're right, Jake. Anyone who's a broadcaster would, the first thing that you would be looking at, would be whether the mic's hot or not. But I have a possible second explanation for this. My experience when you're dealing with people who are egotistical, polarizing, and I think Tony Grossi pretty well would be that kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have axes to grind, and they can take the form of engineers, sound engineers, who reassure people that mics are turned off when in fact they're not. Somebody may have fucked him. You never really know. I can tell you this, though, it's happened before. And the thing that's really amazing about it is it's happened in many different ways. And, I mean, how did people find out that Pee Wee Herman was at an adult theater? How did they find out? And it happened here in Sarasota. How did they find out? He looked nothing like Pee Wee Herman. Paul Rubens was wearing his hair long. He had a beard and a mustache. There's no fucking way. Anyone in that theater would not have said, hey, that's Pee Wee Herman. No way. Somebody told the police that he was there. I don't know who, but later we found out there were a gazillion people with axes to grind. Gazillion of people. And it's possible. But with Grossi, I tend to believe he's just a dumb fuck. I'd like to tell you that there's a boatload of talent in the broadcast arena of Cleveland sports talk. There is not. And I'm not saying this because I think I'm better. I'm not. Okay? But what I'm saying is I hired people my whole career who were. All right? So I know the difference between somebody who's good and somebody who's not very good. And Cleveland is, just like for free agents in sports, from a broadcast destination, let's look at what's happened to the industry too. I mean, they've taken the life and the heartbeat out of radio. And the companies that own radio stations, all 5 of them, are more concerned about their internet presence now than they are about their actual radio signal. And that is the saddest part of it, is that people who might have actually had a career in broadcasting, like I did when I was young, they don't anymore because there are no openings, because a lot of the shows are being done remotely from other marketplaces, that they are, done, pre-recorded, and it's computerized, that the playlists of music are all computerized and shared between multiple radio stations that are owned by these corporations. And so the really fresh talent that we used to thrive on just isn't there anymore because there's no market for it.
Or they're on the oldies stations.
Well, but those are the guys who are hanging on because it's too late for them to do anything else. The younger people who might have actually become something special never get started in the business because there's no entry point. When I owned radio stations, there was the entry point was interesting. We had interns. We would hire young people who had an interest in radio, and they would do interns. The greatest one of all time was the guy who he had the van, the station van. He would wash the van and he would vacuum the van. He was an intern who was just volunteering his time at the radio station, and he learned and soaked up everything, and it was really great. And we put him on the air. He got an opportunity to do a broadcast, but he didn't have a name. He goes, "What name?" So I went back with my program director, the late Leroy. God bless his soul. Lee and I had a love-hate relationship, God only knows, and Lee passed away a couple of years ago. And I do miss him because he was a sensational talent. And he said to me, "I got it." I go, "What?" He goes, "Craig Van Waxer." That became his name. And we were all on the floor rolling when he did his first break. It's like, 21 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock, and I'm Craig Van Waxer. But Craig Van Waxer would have had absolutely no entree into the broadcast industry. So what we end up with are people who are recirculating and recirculating. And in Cleveland, it's especially profound because it's not like there's new people trying to get in. And if people do something stupid like Tony Grossi did and curse on the air and they have to get suspended or, God forbid, fired, who do you hire? What pool of people do you hire from? In the old days, if we had an opening in little old bitty Flint, Michigan, for God's sakes, we would get scores of tapes from people in smaller markets wanting to work their way up. So, I mean, we would talk to record representatives who said, hey, there's a guy in this market in Champaign-Urbana who's looking to move up to market, 114, which was what Flint was at the time. And, hey, send this tape over, man. We want to listen to it. We listen to tapes from people all over the country. Now, what do you have? It's not like the Cleveland stations are getting hundreds of tapes from young, hungry talent. It's not there. So, he's stupid. He's suspended. He'll get his job back and end up rotting, and the station will rot just like everything else rots. Is Tony the Calf, are you there?
Meh.
I wanted to point something out, Tony, that is really pathetic.
Hello from
right?
my new humble abode in Bloomington, Minnesota.
And where?
Bloomington, Minnesota, right outside St. Paul.
How about that? Yeah.
Where
so you have an
Comcast has
apartment
literally fucked me over by giving me a broken modem and router to start my fucking journey in life.
there? Wow.
Well, we can't get a technician until 2 p.m. on Sunday.
So you have your own apartment in Bloomington.
Yep.
How big is it, man?
It is a 2-bedroom palatial estate. I needed 2 bedrooms because I'm so fat I literally take up a bedroom and a half. So.
No, when you sit around the house, you sit around the house. Yeah. So how much a month? How much a month do they have to pay in a town like that?
With all utilities, $1,400.
$1,400. It's really funny for a approximately 700 to 800 square foot apartment in Sarasota. It's $1,300 minimum for like 600 square feet. I mean, it's expensive as hell down here.
Yep.
So I could only imagine, when you're in the city, it's.
Thank God for that raise. I just got at work.
Yeah, thank goodness is right. I wanted to point out to you, Tony, that I'm going to really let you have your way with this. The Timberwolves have been fined $25,000 for arresting D'Angelo Russell for a game. Go.
I almost said David Stern. God rest his soul. Adam Silver. Lick my fucking taint, you cunt. Kawhi Leonard does this 3 to 4 games a fucking month. LeBron James just did it the other day. But nothing. But the Timberwolves, who want to arrest D'Angelo Russell who's had a notorious knee issue. If you remember, when he was in Golden State, he sat out because of it, and they get fined. I love how the Timberwolves put out there, hey, we're not going to pay that, and you can shove it up your fucking fupa.
Well, the thing that's amazing about it is the poor just keep getting poorer. And, the Timberwolves and the Cavs have the same number of wins, so it's not like I'm playing Mr. Superiority here with you. But
although blocking Jimmy Butler the other night was so sweet, because fuck that.
Still got a little axe to grind there, huh? It's.
I wouldn't piss on that fucker if he was on fire.
The poor keep getting poorer. It's like if we're going to enforce that damn resting rule, but we got to wait for it. Okay, the Timberwolves, go! It's like.
Congratulations, you've just become must-see TV.
And Vlade Divac is saying, thank God it wasn't us. It's a league of inequities, and it's really ludicrous.
NBA, nothing but assholes.
Right.
Can't the Cavs get fined every day they play Colin Sexton?
Well, they get punished. The fact is, they've actually won, 3 of their last 4 games, and that's great for JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, look at them playing for JB Bickerstaff, but not the old white guy who.
Well, Beeline, it wasn't part of the culture, and it just wasn't working out. We know that. But and Colin Sexton did actually play a pretty good game the last game. The other game, they came back from 22 down or 19 down or whatever the hell it was, and they ended up winning the game without Colin Sexton on the floor. And it was like, God, no wonder the ball was moving,
Yeah. And what happened to Philly?
Yeah. Oh man. Look.
They're dropping off one at a time.
The greatest player in the game was taken out by Ante Zizic. What
Yeah.
can I tell you?
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't believe him?
greatest-
Ask him. He'll tell you. I'm the greatest player on the planet.
I mean, and he was really making his presence known prior to the injury. It's like how Brett Brown still has a job. I have no idea. How can the ownership? I mean, isn't the coach part of the process? Am I missing something?
I think he'd be allowed to tell his player to learn to shoot a 3-pointer, or try to learn. I think that's something a coach should be able to do. But
They have a 300 winning percentage on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts.
What, Simmons has made what? About 2 more 3-pointers than any of us? This
Yeah, and you want to know how bad it is? It's so bad that the Philadelphia fans want to bring Markelle Fultz back. That's how bad it is. It's
At least he
fucked up.
tries.
Yeah.
Elton Brand's there. He's the GM. Have him play.
Yeah. Get Elton John. Who the hell cares? Somebody. At least we'll get some decent music.
Yeah. It's
What,
What-
like
what
the
I-
Telphonics?
There you go. Get that Philly soul back. Get that 70s stuff.
what I wanted to punt around here with the panel is the CBA and the NFL. And they're saying within the next few days it's going to be ratified. It will incorporate a 17th regular season game, and it's going to have an expanded playoff number of teams. There is a huge, sharp division amongst the rank and file of the players. Young players versus old players who know what the toll is on their bodies, young players who are just motivated by the dollars and cents of the game, and the older players who are also motivated by dollars and cents, but have the sense to know that adding games on the wear and tear of a regular season is going to shorten careers and it's going to save the NFL money in the long run. We'll go the opposite way. Brian, where do you stand on the CBA?
We're talking about the NFL CBA, correct?
Yes, the NFL.
Okay. I hate the idea of going to 17 games. I know a lot of the players hate the idea of going to 17 games. I would actually like to see a contraction back to 14 and end the regular season sooner so that we get all of this crap done by February 1st.
In this great argument between the younger players and the older players, Jake, is somebody right and wrong, or is this just divide and conquer by Goodell and the boys?
I think it's hit the point where the players know they're going to have to get the 17 games. Owners will win this negotiation, but the players have to hold out and do all they can just to seem like they didn't totally lose. If they take a deal now and it's the same thing they take before the season and it turns out bad, they could say they fought for it. If they take a deal now and it is bad, they'll be criticized and say they didn't fight for enough. So I feel like this is the best they'll get. And all they could ask for is more playoff money for winners. But other than that, they have to hold out and pretend they won this deal because they're not going to win against the owners.
Now, I will add that it does raise the basement of the pay scale up. So the bottom tier players are getting an actual raise. So
Yes. And so is the practice squad, like a minimum $80,000 or something.
Yeah, well, the big picture is that the players currently carve up 48% of the overall profits, revenues of the league, and that leaves 52% for the owners. However, there are many more players than there are owners, of course. And this CBA is going to, by its maturation, which will be 10 years from now, expand that from 48 to 48.5%. That is the length and breadth of this over a 10-year period. That could amount to $5 billion, though. I mean, let's not underestimate by small percentage points the value of something, that's $5 billion that would go into the pockets of players at some point in time in the future or over an accumulated period of time. Rick, is this? Yeah, and anyone can jump in on this. I'm just kind of doing this in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, my last comment is there's no way the owners say the players are worth half the league's revenue. The owners want to say they're worth more than the players, so they're not going to get 50. They'll get 49.9 maybe, but 50% will not go to the players.
Well, I mean, Rick, I mean, look, everything is generating revenue, and money talks, bullshit walks, and we know that. What we're seeing in the NBA, we just talked about resting players, all right? In the NFL, at what point do you have to start with an expanded season, fewer preseason games, and an expanded playoff kind of thing? At what point do you just say, we just want to get into the playoffs? And I know the owners obviously want the home revenue, that they want home field advantage. But at what point, if you want to win a Super Bowl, do you have to start strategizing by controlling how much time your players play?
Well, the NFL may have to get used to hearing the term load management, and because they're granted they take away one preseason game, but then they tack on an extra game, and then in the same breath they harp about player safety. So hard for me to fathom that. With if it's an extra game, you're getting your head knocked around out there. And then you've got Jacksonville out there going to play in London for 2 games this next year. So one team's going to wind up permanently in London, I think. So there's a lot of stuff going around, but they harp on player safety and then immediately add on a 17th game. And they say, well, we're going to get rid of one of the preseason games. Well, the preseason game, you're playing all the people that may not even have a starting position come the start of the season. So, nobody's really gaining anything out of that. So I'm anxious to see what, if the teams that have a chance to get in the playoffs and they've already secured their bye or their seeding, you're not going to see a whole lot of star players that 17th week. You're going to see a lot of extras.
I got to be honest about this, and I've talked about this many, many times. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, of course, are an inept organization and have had generations of ineptitude since coming back into the league. But nobody can question the validity of the franchise, all right? The Jacksonville Jaguars, Jacksonville should not have a professional football team. They just shouldn't. And I'll go one step further. Tampa Bay shouldn't have a baseball team. And if you look at their attendance, with the exception of the times they make the playoffs and then they fill the stadium, and then suddenly old Dick Vitale becomes, a Rays fan. It's oh baby, I've been here all along. It's like, fuck you, man, fuck you. I mean, there's no buzz. I live in this market, okay? I'm in this umbrella of the Tampa Bay Rays, and there is no vibe. There never has been. There are more Yankees fans who were relocated from the East Coast of Florida down to Florida here, or from the East Coast of the United States, the New York City area. Then there are native Floridians who would have any pride or reason for cheering on the Rays. The Jacksonville, I mean, I don't even consider that a big league market. And I don't mean to insult the city of Jacksonville. I mean, St. Augustine is lovely south of Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, in essence, is really southern Georgia. If you really want to, if you've ever been there, it doesn't have the trappings of a major market. And they've never been able to draw fans. And the fact that they're playing 2 games in fucking London, and even Bronk doesn't like the idea because he doesn't want that shit shoveled to him in England. I mean, but
That's
they're going to
that's the best you can send us.
they're going to lose their franchise there, and rightfully so. They can't sustain it, and I don't believe. They tried to get a baseball team in Clearwater, Florida, years and years and years and years ago before there was the Tampa Bay Rays. They couldn't get the deal done. There just isn't enough support in some of these markets. We'll see about the Raiders. The Raiders have moved hither and yon, and so now we know they're going to be in the desert, and that's lovely. I hope they dry up and die there. I'm sick of the Raiders having a different city in front of it. At some point, you got to have a fan base. Tony the Calf, what is your perspective of the CBA and the NFL?
Well, first off, I'll say this: the Raiders are going to be Vegas is the perfect place for them because that's tourist driven. Look at the Golden Knights in the NHL and how every game is completely sold out. Now, granted, they've been good, but I mean, Vegas, if you're looking to get something entertaining for the number one tourist destination in America, football is it. But for the CBA, I just look at it: 17 games, more playoff games, just another way to get us talking about football. We already got to deal with it with 16 game season, 4 game training camp, or 4 game preseason, training camp, OTAs. People telling us about their 74th mock draft that they done in 3 days about how, Joe Burrow is going to fucking shove a football up Marvin Lewis's butthole and lead the Bengals to a Super Bowl. And it's just like, football overload is how I look at it, and I tune out. I really do. To be honest, I could care less about football right now. Yeah, I mean, I watch hockey. Yeah.
We're in the process, of going through the early stages of the combine, and but the thing is, it's like what I keep saying, and every year it kind of eats away a little bit more at me about you're looking forward. If nothing else, it's kind of like trying to make something work that just won't work, and I don't know if you've had this experience in your life where you just are powerless. You can't make something work. The NFL for me is kind of that way because it's like, oh, it's an exciting game. And I grew up loving the Cleveland Browns, but it's become such a dangerous game, and more is being found out about the depths of the dangers of the game. And now they're trying to increase the regular season number of games. And it's harder and harder to justify this stuff, and the only justification is the same justification that we saw in boxing, is that there will always be people who are desperate enough, poor enough, who are looking outside of educational routes to earn big money, and there will always be that group of people who are willing to shorten their lives to get there. And just like there are drug dealers who will get wiped out in wars with other drug lords for the lure of the lifestyle and fast, big money and quick money. And the lure of the NFL, you'll always be looking at the guy who signs the big contract. You'll be looking at the OBJs. The vast majority of people who play in the NFL are far from that, and their careers don't last very long, and now their careers are about to last a shorter amount of time. Stop and think about it. Think of your favorite players that you've seen injured, that you've seen guys going like Jarvis Landry and OBJ at, 3/4 speed because they were injured playing during the season. One more additional game and additional playoff games, you could easily have 2 additional games in a season. Well, you go a 7-year career, that's a whole nother season. So, your body's playing 8 seasons, but you're being paid for 7. That's the horrible consequence of the sport. So it's hard for me to get behind, but you know how it's going to end.
And the new CBA, by the way, will not give players raises for playoff wins. It's going to be the same rate of their contract. So they're going to play more playoff games and make the same amount of money.
It's. I remember when we talked about grading on a curve when I was in school, and we hated the cocksucker who ended up scoring, a 98 on what seemed like an impossible exam, and we really wanted to take him out to the woodshed and just kick the shit out of him because of the grading on the curve, the whole notion.
Mr. Moohead, you scored a 43. Thank you
Where's
for
that
being
put
the
me?
basement.
But
B plus.
you look at the playoff situation in the NFL now, and it's like we want the Browns to get better, and it's like the NBA too. We want teams to get better. But what we're really doing is we're lowering the tide, okay? We're lowering the tide so that lousy teams can kind of catch up in their own inimitable way. And so that it'll mean making the playoffs will mean literally nothing, and teams will be able to fight over the final playoff position or whatever. And here we are, and we should be a 9-7 team in Cleveland if we were coached correctly. We have the schedule, the difficulty of schedule to accomplish that. And we should have been moved up from 7-9 and 1. No, what were we? 7-8 and 1. We should have been able to move up to 9-7 based on the level of talent that we had, but we hired a mongoloid idiot as the head coach, and so now we're back down to 6-10, and which proves with a mongoloid idiot running the team and coaching the team, we still were 6-10, and we should have been 9-7. 9-7 will make the playoffs in many instances under the new CBA and the NFL. And if we're 9-7 next year and make the playoffs, I'm going to shrug my shoulders and say we should be better than that. We have too much talent, and if we had coaching that knew how to coach, strategy that knew how to take advantage of the balance between running and passing the football, we would be 10-6 or 11-5, and then we could say it doesn't matter what CBA we're playing under, we would have made the playoffs. But do you really want to be a lame duck team that comes in because of the CBA? It's like, I don't know. It just doesn't mean anything to me anymore. And if it's like the NBA, the 1 seed versus the 8 seed, it just, why are they even playing the series? For God's sakes, why? You look at the teams who were fighting for the 8th slot in the NBA, and you're like, I mean, the Cavaliers can up and beat them on a given night. For God's sakes, in a 7-game series, are you kidding me? There's going to be and look at how early the Bucks clinched. I mean, what did they say, that it was like the earliest clinching, like in the last, was it since like 30 years ago or some goofy number? I mean, the haves and have-nots in the NBA, terrible, and now we're going to have the same thing in football in order to compensate for the Giants and the Browns and the Jaguars and all the teams that never win. The compensation for the teams and the owners are, well, you can still suck a little less and get into the playoffs.
Or you won't be mathematically eliminated until after Thanksgiving.
Right?
Well, in the case of the Giants, they actually have won. They hit their zenith, winning the Super Bowl, and then they have their then it comes crashing down, and they go the opposite way for a couple of seasons. Then they come right back and win the goddamn Super Bowl again.
Yeah, well, I referred to. It sounds like somebody is typing. Is somebody typing?
Or finger drumming.
Yeah,
I was not.
that sounds.
It wasn't me. It could be
I
the
heard
heater.
like headphones
heater
being
might have-
weird. Yeah.
The heater in my apartment just kicked in, and I don't have my headphones at the moment. I can bow out if it gets too irritating.
No, if we at least know what it is.
know
then
what it is.
Yeah.
So we're-
Yeah, just
Yeah, you guys
It's-
are on my phone right now because I obviously don't have internet with the fucking Comcast bullshit. So
yeah. So I guess what it all comes down to is if you're happy making the playoffs, good for you. But it's I don't know. I would much rather team get better and not just go with the low tide and wait for to be
So
released just a little bit.
I had a question I wanted to pick your guys' brain about.
Sure.
I saw the other day that they're planning to tear down the Muni lot and build it into a strip mall.
Yes, that is actually supposedly in the works.
What do you guys think of that?
I hate it, but that's par for the Cleveland course.
I prefer Dorothy part-time because full-time it was just way too much. It was just so you know that I'm paying attention to the chat room, okay?
damn sure ain't overtime. I know that.
Yeah, double time, Dorothy.
Whoa! Oh,
Well, especially if we're talking with Dorothy from the Golden Girls. Now.
I was watching the late Mike Nichols, the guy who directed The Graduate and his last interview, and he was talking about his improvisational comedy partner Elaine May. If you're going all the way back, Rick's nodding his head because you remember Elaine May. I do too.
I got their albums.
Oh, hilarious stuff.
Yeah, no relation, by the way, to Elaine.
Yeah, the funeral parlor thing is the stuff of which legend is made, okay? But, yeah, the more you feed me in the chat room, the more I'm just going to just improvise something stupid. So feel free. And if you want to throw, Ron Penthon, reminders. Anyone in Cleveland who doesn't know who Ron Penthon was, if I said Captain Penny, you'd know who he was. All right. What was Barnaby's real name?
Lynn Sheldon.
Very good. Very good.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, that's.
I'm trying to remember Mr. Jingling, but it escapes me at the moment. So
He just tinglinged.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got medicine for that now, so I think.
No, I mean, here we go. This is improvisational, okay? You ready? Drum
Okay.
roll. He had more keys than.
Alicia?
No. Greg Robinson. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that was about 70, so there you go.
He was on Halley's 7th floor. Isn't that where he was?
On Halley's 7th floor, we'll be looking for you to turn the key.
Yeah, that's it. Mr. Jingling.
Or Stella key, I don't care.
Yeah, that's how I knew it was Christmas in Canton. It was Mr. Jingling and the Norelco Santa on TV. Remember the Norelco shaver commercials with the Norelco Santa? It must be Christmas, Oh my God! Oh my God! It's like, why would they find an
Was that from,
ugly
like, 1981
old woman
or
to do an
something?
exercise show? Wait a minute. The theme song. Paige Palmer. Yeah, isn't that amazing? I remember that biatch. Yeah, I mean, she's long dead. She's decomposing in the ground, and her exercise. And she wasn't exactly a bodybuilder, now was she? But those were the good old days in Cleveland television, man. Who were the two guys on City Camera, TV8 City Camera News?
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to get this one.
I couldn't tell you.
The only thing I can think of is he was a newscaster. I think Doug Adair, but that probably isn't even.
Doug Adair was a newscaster in Cleveland, but City Camera, which was TV8, which at the time was CBS,
Right.
in Cleveland, Marty Stewart, was that the guy's name? Stewart, was that his name? God Almighty, that's and I remember I just remember little bits and pieces from when I was a kid, you know? City Camera News at 6. So yeah, you just go ahead and oh, there you go. Jim Mueller with sports. Good, Bronx. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the adventure road that led nowhere. I mean, it's like, you know, Jesus Christ. Fucking Jim Doney, it's like, get a home, would you please? If you're not from Cleveland and old like we are, you don't know what the fuck we're talking about. But yeah, and nobody could ever forget Paul Wilcox and Polka Your Eyes Out. Polka varieties.
Can I do this for Bronk?
Yeah.
I could have been an offensive tackle, but then I got high. Da 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 da. There you go, Bronk.
Adventure Road was, I don't know what in the hell, you know. I was waiting for him to actually have an adventure. It's like this, nothing ever happens, you know. It's like a fucking shill. And then, of course, our favorite Bronk, the Gene Carroll Show.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing ever could be
TV
better.
host who dressed up like a coroner.
He
Or an
did.
undertaker. His dark suit, just tall.
And
with
ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gene Carroll. And there's one thing, and Bronk knows, every Sunday, I mean, that was a must. At 12 noon, it was the Gene Carroll Show, and at 1 o'clock, it was Polka Varieties. And if you watch both of those shows, you end up brain damaged like me, okay? Actually, I could only basically watch the first 3 minutes of Polka Varieties because the people twirling around so fast, I got nauseous, okay? I was like a little...
Frankie Yankovic.
But the children, the little girls who were twirling batons, so help me God, on the Gene Carroll Show, and firing these things up in the air, and the things would come down and bounce around on the stage. They'd have to run after
Pick
them.
them up and start all over like nothing happened.
Oh, and Gene Carroll's just prodding them on, man. He's like, that was really good. That was really, really good. God only knows. All right. So we're done talking about that part of things. But it was certainly fun. As far as the other things from the combine, Mackay Becton ran a 5'11", 40 at 364 pounds, measuring in at 17% body fat, and so his value has gone up. That's but doesn't mean that he can play football, folks. It means that he's, a few pounds away from a heart attack, and that he does run fast for his size, but he will probably get hurt. You just don't know. So those are the types of things that we try to quantify. And then who was the wide receiver? The Alabama guy who ran a 4.27.
Yeah.
But we already know about Antonio
guy
Callaway.
was Jefferson from LSU, right?
Say what?
Jefferson from LSU ran a 4.4. The one who had like 6 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't mean anything. I mean, what did Callaway run? Callaway ran like a 4.3 something, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he couldn't catch the ball. I mean, it doesn't matter how fast you are. I've seen generation after generation of incredibly fast wide receivers who can't run a pattern, and they're easy to cover because there isn't enough time for the quarterbacks to throw deep. And if he has to cut his pattern off to run over the middle, he's a scared little mouse. We've seen this over and over again.
Grace ran a 4.7.
Yeah.
Didn't
Do you
affect him too
remember?
much.
I remember I had a girlfriend in Canton, and her father was the most boring man in the world. So help me God. I mean, he made Bronx sound animated. Okay.
Ooh, wow.
No, this guy, I'd go over to her house, and I would rue going over to her house because he would start with the home movies, right? And here we were back when we visited the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and that was Adventure Road. It was like watching somebody else's home fucking movies, and it's like, make it stop, dear God. Just make it stop. So I'm not really caring very much about the combine, to be honest with you. We know this much, that the Cleveland Browns, Isaiah Simmons is going to be gone by the time number 10 comes around. Now they're talking about, well, what about Derek Brown as a defensive tackle? And it's like, you know something? You need, I don't know, for an interior lineman, you're going to give up your number 10 pick for an interior lineman? You best not do that, because you've got to protect your quarterback, or else there's going to be no season. You see that the Browns are going after Chase Daniels, and who's the other? Case Keenum for backup?
Yeah.
Chase or Case?
But Trumpet, I thought Case Keenum and Chase Daniels were the same person. I mean, that's going to be your backup quarterback, so you don't want them on the field. Ever.
Wasn't Chase Daniel from Perdon't?
I couldn't even tell you.
He was from, I think, Missouri or something, or Hawaii. I'm pretty sure.
And now for my pathetic headline of the day. It wouldn't be Moohead Radio without one pathetic headline. Will Tim Tebow be called up to the Mets?
He's the only one left that hasn't been named manager.
Hey, maybe he'll get Altuve's clicker.
For God's sakes, Tim fucking Tebow? Am I like in the bad hot tub time machine? He's 32 fucking years old, and he hit 163 in AAA, and you're asking me this question?
Work in the broadcast booth.
Tim Tebow.
No, he'd be the dugout interview.
There you go.
Just mic him up every single game.
There's only one. Yeah, and it was kind of like when I saw Brady Quinn announcing football games. It was like, nah. No, you blew it a long time ago. You had too much promise when you were hyped at Notre Dame, and no, I don't even want to see you now. I don't even want to have anything to do with you anymore. Tim Tebow is that guy for me. It's like never has more been said about less. Honest to God. I'm not even going to invoke God's name with Tim Tebow because he might come on the show.
Les Levine?
The last thing I remember at Brady Quinn was he gained like 30 pounds and had like giant arms, and he could not throw a football anymore because he gained too much weight.
The funnious thing about Brady
Remember
Quinn
that?
is
When it's like
his
when he
sister
had
married
arms
AJ
like
Hawk.
this, so he couldn't get his arm behind his head.
Incredible. He was awful. And Tebow.
So did he hire someone to comb his hair then, or?
The thing that's remarkable is, I'm never going to stop trying. Oh, the old college try Tim Tebow. He's not good at anything. Let's just be honest about it. He's not good enough. Never was, never will be. And look, and he was a good college quarterback for the system that they ran. But, and he had his opportunities to start in the NFL. And, and then the baseball thing.
He did beat the Steelers in a playoff game. With
he gets
one
a golf clap
miraculous
for that.
throw.
And he was more known for his religious views and his virginity than he was anything else. He was like instant, social media guy, instant reality TV kind of guy, all that kind of thing. But no, I'm sick of hearing his name. And at 32 years old, I feel like he's been around like Methuselah. It's like he won't go away. It's like, just make it stop.
He's trying to be Robert Redford.
Immortal.
He's kind of like American Idol. Just won't go away.
All they need is Wilford
that's
Brimley
true,
to
too.
go, what do I need with a 32-year-old rookie for?
But yeah, American Idol's been around longer than TiVo, for like 4 or 5 seasons, and should have stopped way before that.
Well, I mean, they brought it back on a different network, and it's, just when you thought it couldn't get worse. I mean, it was like Simon, what's his name, Simon Cowell, gone, and it's like, oh my God, this actually got worse. That's not possible. I made the mistake of watching the Cleveland Indians play their spring training game, and I wanted to say something about Bobby Bradley, because Bobby Bradley is a danger to himself at first base. I don't know if you saw him trying to play that position.
Oh,
Do you remember Corbin Burnson in Major League? You know, Dorn. Remember that he would Olay ground balls? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
And so the coach made him take them to the chest, you know, and he was all beaten up. Well, that's what they should do with Bobby Bradley, except with baseball bats. You know, he comes up and he hits a 420-foot home run, but on a simple ground ball, he butchers it. There's some bad players in camp, and the Indians, I don't know if you're paying attention, you're probably not, but their whole pitching.
Uh-oh.
It's
Uh-oh.
dead air moo time.
Well, it's like you just plotted a takeover here.
A
Oh
coup.
shit! Did he just bounce out of this? whole
Yeah,
thing?
you're in the host section of the screen right now.
Oh, fantastic!
Bobby Bradley must have been watching.
But yeah, I think Tim Tebow's going to end up being the fucking second coming of the Natural. They're all going to come out with little lightning bolts stitched to their goddamn uniforms.
I think one of those passed balls from Bobby Bradley hit Moo's house.
It might have been a bat.
Yeah, take care of it. You know, happens.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
From
he just-
Arizona all the way to the west coast of Florida. That was one hell of a toss. Too bad nobody got out. They just keep rounding the bases again and again and again and again.
No, the thing just popped out on me. That
Oh,
was interesting. Yeah, this is Sasquatch time. This is Carl Willis. Carl Willis can turn anything good that Mickey Callaway gave him into shit in just no time flat. That cocksucker, every time he's around the Indians, everything goes to hell in a handbasket on the pitching staff. And all of them are fucking hurt. Every last one of them. Clace is down now for 8 to 12 weeks with a back issue at 21 years of age.
Yep.
There's no mechanics being taught to people. Nobody's getting better. I mean, they're all fucking injured. I just don't get it.
So is Bradley the new Kipnis?
No, Bradley is the new Aguilar. I mean, he's not gonna fucking play. I mean,
that's a notch below.
I don't want to get the ball, I'm afraid. Run away.
there's bad players on this team, and
I told you guys they'd be a 70-win team at best. And now that's looking like an overshoot.
they got no bullpen, and their starting pitching is already going down. I mean, it's
Too bad Tony's not around. We could actually, say, hey, you got something to look forward to with the Twinkies.
It's, I don't know. At any rate,
Watch this year's Cy Young winners be Bauer in the National and Kluber in the American.
then there's two more things I wanted to mention. Disgusting. The Los Angeles deputies shared Kobe Bryant crash photos. That's right. Hey, Bob, I got to show you something. You like arms and legs strewn all over near a fuselage? I got it.
At least TMZ
Somebody
didn't have
picked
to
up-
buy it, right?
Somebody picked up an arm and they actually had a Timex watch. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
Hey, here's proof that you can cut the head off a mamba and it won't live.
Would that be a bitch?
What?
Would that be a bitch if the rotor actually cut his balls off?
Watch it be a video of like, oh look, this is the arm Kobe took his last shot with. There's something screwed up like that go out.
Just pathetic. Just absolutely pathetic.
Merely a flesh wound.
Yeah.
Well, you could tell which one was Kobe's because of the fucked up fingers.
You know, I would like to take those officers and share photos of their wives blowing other cops. You know, fuck you. I mean, can't you keep anything quiet? I mean, why would you? I mean, do you know that if somebody said to me, hey, you know, I'm forwarding you the crash pictures of the remains of Kobe's body and his daughter, I mean, I wouldn't look at that. Have you ever seen something that you wished you hadn't seen? You know, and out of curiosity, I remember like when
Can you
Sean
imagine if they-
Livingston's knee injury. Do you remember Sean Livingston's knee injury?
Oh,
Did you
Paul
watch
George
the video?
too. Yeah, the Paul George one too.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick.
Did you?
Like those.
Did you say, "Oh, why did I watch that, man? I can't get that shit out of my head."
What was worse was the Tim Crumry broken leg in the
All
Super
of these-
Bowl.
and no, it was-
That and Theismann, after
Theismann,
Lawrence Taylor
oh.
hit him.
Oh, Kevin Ware, I think, is the all-time worst one because at high definition, you could see
Yeah.
perfect angle right on the sideline.
Well, I watched a really good fighter become a vegetable in the ring in a fight. Nigel Benn, who was the winner of the fight, and Gerald McClellan, who was the body snatcher, in what had to have been the most brutal fight I've ever seen, and it was a back and forth affair, and Ben wound up and just nailed McClellan, and McClellan just, you know, he got up and he kept fighting, but he couldn't. I mean, he didn't have it, and he finally, just of his own volition, took a knee and got himself counted out. Don King came into the ring afterwards and said that Gerald McClellan was a dog. He literally called him sorry about that, Topaz, a dog for quitting. And well, meanwhile, they were trying to resuscitate him in the corner, and he was permanently blinded and brain damaged after that. And Gerald McClellan never remembered who he was or what he was. And this, you know, and you wish to God you hadn't seen that. You know, it's like, of all the things, why did I choose to watch this fight? And it was live, so it wasn't like after the fact you go in there and say, oh, I want to see how that guy got killed. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of fights where guys got killed. And I did watch the Dooku Kim fight. And I didn't watch it again. I wasn't going to sit there and analyze that shit, you know? And, you know, there's a lot of great historical fights, you know, that you can watch. But Benny Kid Paret getting killed by Emil Griffith, it isn't one of them. That's not one that I want to go back and revisit, you know?
And Deontay Wilder wanted to go on a shield and get knocked down 3 more times. Like, bad idea, dude. Don't know what you were thinking.
Well, you know, you go down to your shield, you stay down.
Yeah.
It's not,
The guy who threw in the towel for him, I think he got fired.
He's about to be, yeah. He,
Yeah,
was,
or about
he
to
said
be.
Wilder said he embarrassed my brand, but might have saved his life. So.
Yeah, the same guy who said he wore that 40-pound thing, and it says that's what took his legs out.
One thing that I do not, that he was blaming the costume.
Yeah, the
right?
costume.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something about Deontay Wilder. And history is lined with dead fighters, guys who died in the ring. And in the vast majority of cases, the people who actually killed them didn't really kill them. It was either an accumulation of damage or it was damage that had happened in a previous fight. And that the medical, you know, in boxing, as far as licensing and being allowed to fight, is way too lax. And a guy like, I would not be surprised, based on the performance that I saw, that he could have damage, cranial damage right now. It's entirely possible. Going out on a shield and Mark Breland taking this shit and this flack from that group of people, you know, Deontay Wilder, let him go out and die. So help me God. To say that Breland did the wrong thing, and for the trainer to say the same thing and to put the shit on Breland in that situation, it's really unfair. Totally unfair.
Another bad one is Texas let Tito Ortiz fight a pro wrestler in a real fight recently. And what do you think happened? Yeah, I don't know how you license fights, but there has to be some strict thing where this should not be sanctioned at this point.
Yeah.
Breland
but-
leaving the Wilder camp, that might be a blessing in disguise for him anyway.
Oh, his brand's done. His brand is done. He has to beat Fury quick to
Yeah.
bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't Breland who hurt his brand. It was Deontay Wilder and his inability to fight. And we don't know what the full reason for that was, but whatever the hell it was ugly.
Costume, clearly. It was the costume.
Oh yeah. You come in looking like the Black Knight from Monty Python? What the hell? And he said it was for the demonstrate Black History Month or something like that. It's like, okay.
I
Whatever
could
you
see
say,
Michael
dude.
Buffer.
He's
And the red
but mine a
corner-
flesh wound.
Yeah,
the-
merely a
the-
flesh wound.
And in the blue corner, the Knights who say knee.
All
We
right.
want a shrubbery.
All
All
right,
right, everybody.
We'll call it a draw.
I'm done at 7 o'clock, time to rock. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. To Tony Grossi out there, you just keep practicing
You rock.
that radio business. You may get it right one of these days. Thanks for
Yep.
tuning in. We'll be back again Monday with the next installment of Moohead Radio. Until then, me and the doggy say hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Move.